Because of Kim and her husband John moved to Sarasota in 1971, her parents, sister with husband, and daughters with their husbands and children followed. She is president of the Jewish Genealogical Society of Southwest Florida. Sister City is assistant city director for Talmud Israel and co-president of the local Ort American chapter. So with this, I will mute everybody. Kim, you will need to unmute yourself. Let me know when you want me to put the screen sharing up, and we will be ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We have 47 squares, which I think is a really, really, really good crowd.
Okay, Sarasota-Manatee is special. It's the best place to retire. It has the best beaches. There's the culture, the great medical care, fishing, circus tradition. Oh, I better not say hurricanes. Okay, the list goes on and on. The Jewish people of Sarasota-Manatee contributed much to make our area special. In 1905, the only Jewish person living within a 50-mile radius of Sarasota-Manatee was a man in Arcadia. It wasn't until 1909 that someone Jewish moved to Manatee County, and that was in Palmetto. And it wasn't until 1913 that the first Jewish person moved to Sarasota. Today, I will talk about how the Jewish people helped make Sarasota-Manatee so special. But first, I would like to tell you how many Jewish people lived in Sarasota-Manatee over the years. And when I say each year, just kind of think in your mind, kind of guess how many Jewish people you think would have been here in each of the years as I say them. In 1925, there were 50 Jewish people. In 1955, there were 450 Jewish people. In 2001, 17,500 Jewish people. Today, there are 35,300 Jewish people living in Sarasota-Manatee. That's 3.6% of the Sarasota-Manatee Jewish population. Here on the cover of my book is a picture taken at the Lido Beach Casino in about 1960, and you'll see a lady in the chair in the background. This is the wife of Sam Marcus. Go to the next picture and we'll see who Sam Marcus is, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. Sam Marcus is the man here carrying the big fish. He was the first editor of the Jewish newspaper in Sarasota-Manatee. It used to be called the Chronicle, and that was in 1971. And if you get your Jewish news now, you always see on the front page, it says 50 years of the Jewish news. So that is Sam Marcus. Okay, let's go to the next picture here. Now, if you thought that was a big fish, look at this fish. I wish I was there in person today because I have a huge picture of this. It's almost 2 feet tall, and you could see every scale on this fish. And this man here on the left, his name is Philip Levy, and he was the first Jewish person that came to Sarasota. He came in 1913. Shortly after he came to Sarasota, he went to St. Pete. There weren't any Jewish women in Sarasota. So he went to St. Pete, he met his wife there, his future wife, and then he came back to Sarasota. Now, before this gentleman came to Sarasota, there was a Jewish lady who moved to Palmetto. That was in 1909. Her name was Golden Marine. She was Jewish. She was originally from Boston, then she moved to Chicago and then to Palmetto, came here with her husband. Unfortunately, she drowned in the Manatee River in 1922. And when her husband tried to save her, he drowned too. Very sad story there. Let's go to the next picture here. This beautiful lady is Cecilia Levy. This is the wife of Philip Levy. They were married in St. Pete, then came to Sarasota, and they had 2 children in Sarasota. raised them here. They were very active in the secular community as well as the Jewish community in Sarasota. In fact, it was Philip Levy and his wife that started the first Jewish community center. The first Jewish community center was in 1925, and eventually that's what became Temple Beth Shalom a couple years later. Philip Levy was the first president of the Jewish Community Center. Okay, let's go to the next picture here. Okay, you will find out today that my favorite photos are photos of downtown Sarasota right at 5 Points. And I have a big photo collection, and for today's presentation, I'm going to show you lots of these photos. This particular photo was taken in the 1920s. And it may even been taken around 1918. If you look on the far right, you'll see a store that says New York Store. That was Philip Levy's department store on Main Street in Sarasota. It was the largest and the best department store in Sarasota back in those times. Let's go to the next photo. These are the two children of Philip and Cecilia Levy. This is Deborah and Abraham. Deborah on the right was born in Sarasota in 1915. She's the first recorded Jewish person living in Sarasota. Let's go to the next picture. This is a picture of Rebecca Rosin. She was married to Simon Rosin. Simon Rosin was the person that I told you about that came to Arcadia in 1905. And Rebecca is holding her little baby son, Oral Rosin. They stayed in Sarasota, but they stayed in Arcadia, but they went into Sarasota for Temple Beth Shalom after Temple Beth Shalom was here. And eventually this family moved to Sarasota. Okay, let's go to the next picture here. This is a picture of guess who? Somebody you know maybe from your temple. This is Simon Rosin here on the right. He's here at his bar mitzvah in 1955 with his mother, Elsie Petarowski. And this is taken inside Temple Beth Shalom, 1955. Not at your current location of the temple, but when your temple was located on Washington Boulevard. Go to the next picture. This is probably one of my favorite pictures of somebody Jewish in Sarasota. This is Willie Gold. And Willie Gold was a tailor who had a shop on Main Street. This is a 1939 photo. And when I was collecting old photos from Sarasota, I desperately wanted pictures of Jewish people that showed the professions. I wanted the Jewish merchants of Sarasota. And I heard that Willie Gold's granddaughter lived in Sarasota. And I knew if she, if she wanted to collect pictures of photos, she would have to have one of her grandfather, Willie. So when I go over to this girl's house, her name is Christy, I was very surprised when I pulled up to her house, there were Christmas lights in front. And I thought maybe I've got the wrong house, but no, I had the right house. Christy no longer practices Judaism, but she did have this beautiful picture of her grandfather. And I asked her if I could take it home so I could scan it for my book. And she said to me, I can't believe I'm giving you this picture to scan at your house when I would not let it leave my house and give it to any other relatives. But she gave it to me, and you're fortunate enough to see this photo here today. So let's go to the next photo. We're back to Main Street, downtown Sarasota. And if you see a picture on the right there of a furniture store, that's Berts Furniture. That was owned by a Jewish couple, Bert and Lenore Cohn. And I love these old photos. I could look at them for hours, study the cars, study the buildings. And it's so interesting that if you look at a lot of the stores on the street, many of them, in fact, a very large proportion of them were owned by Jewish people. So let's go to the next picture here. Now, if I had to tell you where most of the Jewish people in Sarasota-Manatee came from, I would have to say the Northeast and the Midwest. But this photo taken of 3 people in Sarasota is not the case. These three people did not come from the Northeast. They did not come from the Midwest. In fact, the gentleman on the right, Ian Black, came from Ireland to Sarasota in 1982. And the two people on the right, they came from Asheville, North Carolina. That's Ed and Alice Kalin. They came to Sarasota a little bit before 1950. And this gentleman here, Ed Kalin, he opened up Kane's Furniture. I'm sure you've all heard of Kane's Furniture. He opened up the first Kane store in Sarasota in 1950. Let's go to the next picture here. Again, we're back to Main Street. I know there's a few people in this room. I saw Belle's husband, Ted, and I saw the learners in here. I'm sure that they could even recognize this intersection. This is 5 Points. On the right bottom there is the sports shop that was owned by a Jewish couple named Ida and John Levinson. They moved to Sarasota in 1925. They opened up a dress shop first in Bradenton, and then they opened up a store in downtown Sarasota. And by 1933, they opened up this sports shop. And the daughter of the owners of this shop was named Aline. And Aline Levinson married David Cohn. And I'm sure many of you in Sarasota have heard the name David Cohn. David Cohn was a mayor of Sarasota. In fact, he was Sarasota's first Jewish mayor. On to the next picture. There's a picture of David Cohn on the far left, his wife Aline in the middle, and Nima Rosengarten on the right. And Nima Rosengarten is the mother of Luann, and Luann Rosengarten became Luann Palmer, and she was Sarasota's second Jewish mayor. Okay, on to the next picture here. We're back to Main Street again. And if you look at a store on the far right, it's called Delson Shoes. Delson Shoes was a very popular shoe store on Main Street. I moved here in 1971 and I went there often. This picture was taken in 1959. Joseph and Rose Idelson married in 1902 and moved to Sarasota in 1925 with their children, Ruth, Edith, and Samuel. Joseph opened a general store on Main Street that eventually became Delson's, and they didn't call it Idelson's. For some reason, they just called it Delson's. And Samuel joined his father at the store. Edith married Cy Tobian in 1945. In 1948, Samuel and Cy turned that general store into the shoe store. And there's a little story that I heard that Samuel was so devoted to his shoe store. He worked there up until he was in his 90s, and he was so devoted to the store, even though he was a very wealthy man and didn't have to work. Somebody once called him up to make some sort of a real estate deal, and he hung up with them on the phone because he was too busy taking care of his customers. Okay, let's go to the next photo here. Here's a picture of Samuel Idelson in 1928. He was the son of Joseph. And what was so interesting, when I was working on my book, I found out that Samuel and his father Joseph, they each lived to be 100 years old. Pretty good. Next photo, please. I don't know if anybody here remembers Charlie's Newsstand. It was at the corner of Palm and Main Street. This is a picture of Malcolm Krongold in his downtown store called Charlie's News. In 1987 is when this picture was taken. He purchased Charlie's News in 1967. At the time when he purchased it, it was actually a small newsstand. In 1975, he moved his store to the corner of Palm and Main, where it became a very popular full-service newsstand. He sold this store in 1989. Okay, let's go on to the next one. You know, most of these people that I'm talking about, you realize were members of Temple Beth Shalom back in the years and back in the days. This is a 1976 photo of the Sarasota Camera Exchange. It was located at the corner of Bay of Vista and 41. It was owned by Ray and Beverly Broth, and it was the largest camera store in Florida. They were the first store to advertise in the Jewish news. And then when they finally retired, I think you might even see the family working at a camera store in Bradenton today. And this store eventually became Wolf Camera. Let's go on to the next one. Most of the pictures that you'll be seeing today were taken in Sarasota County. This is one of the few pictures that I'm showing you today that was taken in Manatee County. This one was taken in Palmetto. Frank Brandmeister arrived in Palmetto in 1923 and opened a men's clothing store. He met Rose on a trip up north. They married and she joined Frank in Palmetto. In 1930, Frank's brother Mac moved to Palmetto. And you'll see Mac on the left on the grocery store side of this store. And there was another gentleman who had a dry goods store on the right. When Mac came to Palmetto with his wife Eva, this is a very interesting story. Mac and Eva and their 3 children came to Palmetto from Cuba. And when they came to Palmetto, they only spoke Spanish and Yiddish. Now, that didn't suit very well for the other people in Palmetto. And Mac and his family did not feel real comfortable there. There weren't people that even understood their language. When their children went to school in Palmetto, they were the only Jewish people in the whole school. So eventually, the children of Mac, well, at least the daughter, moved to Miami where there was a more established Jewish community. She never felt real comfortable in Palmetto. They did come to services at Temple Beth Shalom, but still it was not the place for a Yiddish, Spanish, Jewish family. Okay, let's go to the next photo here. Another photo from Manatee County. This is Asman's. Sidney and Beatrice Asmans opened a store in Bradenton, and it was first called the Bargain Store. They came in 1925 to Bradenton, and later they changed the name to Asmans. Max Collender and his wife Etta and their son Ernest bought Asmans in 1936 and sold it in 1981. The Colladners and the Asmans were relatives. And when I was working on my book, I was getting so confused. Who are the Asmans? Who are the Collanders? Who are all these different people? So I started making family trees. And if I was with you in person today, I could show you the family tree of the Pavers, the Asmans, the Krongolds. I can't say, I couldn't answer any of the questions now, but if I was with you today, I had so much fun putting together all these family trees. Now, I know that the Asmans had a son-in-law named Sam Kaplan, and he ended up joining in the family business. And this photo here was taken in 1950. Let's go to the next photo. Now, I don't think most people in this room would associate Jewish people with the circus, but I have got to tell you that the Jewish people did more for the Ringling, Barnum, and Brothers and Bailey Circus than any other ethnicity of people did for this circus. First of all, John Ringling gave more money to start Temple Beth Shalom than anybody Jewish. And when John Ringling retired, the man that took over for him for the circus, who became the general manager, was Samuel Gumpertz, and he was Jewish. And the people that performed in the service, so many of them were Jewish. You don't usually think of Jewish people as being tall, but guess what? The giant in the circus was somebody Jewish. His name was Jack Earl, and he was 8 feet 6.5 inches tall. The first clown that was a lady in the circus was Jewish. The man who was in charge of all the midgets of the John Ringling Barnum and Bailey Circus was Jewish. And there are so many more Jewish people that are involved in the circus that a whole lecture at the temple on Longboat Key that was 2 hours long was devoted to all the Jewish people that contributed to this circus. And also, many of you know that when the circus was sold, it was sold to Feld, and Feld is Jewish, and the Feld Entertainment Incorporated is now in Ellington. Let's go on to our next picture here. This is Luann Palmer. She was the second mayor that was Jewish, and she was in the Sailor Circus in Sarasota for many years. I don't know if many of you know this, but there have been 3 Jewish mayors in Sarasota. The first one, as I mentioned, was David Cohn. The second one here is Luann Palmer. And recently, Liz Albert was the mayor of Sarasota. That was back in 2018 and 2019. Now let's go to the next photo, and we'll talk a little bit about sports. Let's talk about White Sox. The White Sox had winter training in Sarasota from 1960 to 1997. Glenn Rosenbaum was with the White Sox as a player, a coach, and a staff manager all the way from 1961 to 1997. He semi-retired to Sarasota in 1998. And Robert Mazur and Jack Gould, White Sox board members, moved part-time to Sarasota. And when you think of sports in Sarasota, you can't help but think of Nathan Benderson Park. Nathan Benderson Park is a community public asset and world-class multi-use sports venue. Let's go on to the next photo. In this photo, you have Howard Millman and his wife, Carolyn Michael, in 2010. Howard Millman was the producing artistic director for the Oslo Repertory Theater from 1995 to 2006, having been managing director from 1968 to 1980. And Carolyn has been a resident actor at the Oslo Repertory Theater for 25 seasons. She's appeared at the Florida Studio Theater in many plays, and she also appeared in the West Coast Black Theater Troupe. Let's go on to the next photo. This is a picture of the Golden Apple Dinner Theater. It was on Pineapple in downtown Sarasota. It opened in 1971 and closed in 2013. It had the best of Broadway plays, and you got to eat food while you watched the plays. And this was opened by Robert Turoff. Next photo, please. This is a photo of the Women's Club. I don't know if many of you in the room know that this is today's Florida Studio Theater, and this is where Temple Beth Shalom had their first high holiday services before they had a synagogue. And then Temple Emmanuel actually held many meetings and many high holiday services right here at the Florida Theater before Temple Emmanuel got their building in 1961. The Florida Studio Theater today has 3 main theaters, and they're all named after somebody Jewish. There's the Gompertz Theater, the Goldstein Cabaret, and the Keating Main Stage. Let's go on to the next photo. In 1949, the Florida West Coast Symphony performed its first public appearance. In 1961, Paul Wolf began his tenure as the 3rd music director. In 1999, Beatrice Friedman made a $1 million gift to ensure successful completion of an endowment campaign. In 2008, the Florida West Coast Symphony rebranded, taking the name Sarasota Orchestra. In this 1988 photo, from left to right, everybody's Jewish except for the man on the left, which is Curtis Hogg. In the wheelchair is David Cohn. Next to David Cohn is Paul Wolf, and on the right is Maurice Hirsch. David Cohn was instrumental in securing Hogg as Van Wezel Hall director. Paul Wolf was artistic director and conductor of the Florida West Coast Symphony, and Maurice Hirsch served as president of the Symphony Board. Cohn was so revered that the Symphony's rehearsal hall was named the David Cohn Hall in 1971. On to the next picture. Now, in this picture, the two ladies on the outside, on the left and the right, are Jewish. The lady in the middle, Marjorie North, is not Jewish, but she was very active within the Jewish community, and she was a reporter for the Sarasota Herald Tribune and attended many of the Jewish events in Sarasota. Right here, this was a event happening at the at the Art Center, at the Sarasota Art Center Association in 1991. This is when the mosaic, an exhibit of more than 600 photographs, was on display at the Sarasota Arts Association. First, the mosaic was at the Jewish Museum of Florida in South Miami Beach, and it eventually came to Sarasota, all about the history of the Jews. And here in the left, you have Sandra Malmood, who chaired the event, who chaired the mosaic when it came to Sarasota. And then, like I said, we've got the Herald Tribune columnist, Marjorie North, in the middle. And on the right is Nancy Raucher, the first director of the Sarasota County Art Council. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is a picture of Franco in 1980. He's a sculptor and a Siesta Key resident who designed the Heisman Trophy. There were many Jewish artists and people in the entertainment industry who lived in Sarasota. There was the Jewish artist Sidney Solomon, Jewish artist Florence Putterman. There were band leaders who were Jewish, Robert Rosengarten, Larry Elgart. There was Ben Stahl, who drew for the Saturday Evening Post, an illustrator. There was the pianist Dick Hyman in Sarasota. Pee Wee Herman lived in Sarasota. And Jerry Springer was a snowbird in Sarasota for many years. And I've seen Jerry Springer a few times at services at Temple Emmanuel. I saw him once at the airport. And once I was gift wrapping for Ort at Southgate Mall, and Jerry Springer saw me gift wrapping, and he made a comment to the lady next to him, "Oh, I see these gift wrappers here every year." So Jerry Springer knew about the Jewish community in Sarasota. Let's go to the next photo. We have a lot of authors in Sarasota who were Jewish. In this photo here, we have one Jewish author who wrote 60 mystery crime novels. His name is Stuart Kaminsky. He's the one with the tie on the left. There was also another Jewish author who lived in Sarasota named McKinley Cantor. He was a Jewish Pulitzer Prize winning author. And we also have the Italian cookbook author who lived in Sarasota, Marcella Hazan. Okay, let's go to the next picture here. Now, you can't talk about Sarasota without talking about doctors. And I don't have to tell you how many Jewish doctors are in Sarasota and how wonderful the Jewish healthcare is in Sarasota. And Sarasota Memorial Hospital always makes one of the top 50 hospitals in the country. And this photo here shows Dr. Samuel Kaplan. He's featured in this 1950 photo with his wife, Sarah. He was the first Jewish president of the Sarasota Medical Association. His father and maternal grandfather were rabbis. Sarah Kaplan also comes from a line of rabbis. Their son, Dr. Howard Kaplan, joined his father's practice, and this was in Venice. Let's go to the next photo. I got to give a little equal time to Manatee County, and this was a Manatee County doctor named Dr. Marvin Silver. This picture was taken in the 1950s. Dr. Silver was an internist and a cardiologist, and he was the first Jewish doctor in Manatee County. And he came to Manatee County in 1954. Many of you may know about the Kazana Farms that was in Bradenton. Well, he loved to breed Arabian and Tennessee walking horses. He had 12 acres with a variety of nuts and fruits that he raised. And his parents in 1958, Lillian and Arthur Silver, they founded Silver's Bread Basket Bakery on Ringling Boulevard near downtown Sarasota. And Silver specialized in Jewish rye bread and challahs. Okay, let's go to our next photo here. I bet you didn't know that in 1949 in Sarasota on 41 and Proctor, there was a Jewish style restaurant. in 1949. There were only about 500 Jewish people living here then, but these two ladies started a Jewish-style restaurant. It was called the Fiesta. This is a picture of Leah Deitch and Becky Goldberg. I don't know if any of you know Jim Haberman. These are his grandparents, and Jim Haberman is living in Sarasota today. We've had many other Jewish-style restaurants in Sarasota since 1949, including Nellie's Deli, Dottie's Kosher, the Nasharai, the Big Kitchen, Salmeyer NYC Deli, Doc Sam's NYC Deli, Sal's. They were serving a lot of Jewish-style foods at Hotel Indigo. There's 2J's, and there have been several bagel shops in Sarasota and Manatee. Let's go to the next photo. You can't say the word restaurant in Sarasota without thinking about Michael's on East. And Michael Klauber of Michael's on East was Jewish. In this 2012 photo are Michael Klauber on the left, his mother, Joanna, then Katie Klauber, which is his sister, then Dr. Murph Klauber, which is Michael's father, and then Tommy Klauber, which is Michael's brother. Now, Murph, the gentleman with the light-colored sports coat in this picture, he visited the Colony Beach Club in 1967 from Buffalo and fell in love with Longboat Key. The family settled in Sarasota in 1969. In 1970, Herb Field sold Murph Klauber the Colony, and then Murph Klauber transformed the Colony into the world-class resort with 240 condominiums, 21 tennis courts, retail shops, and a gourmet restaurant. The Colony closed in 2010, and then after the Colony, you all know that the Klaubers bought Michael's on East. Now, we also have here on the far right, Michael Klauber's brother Tommy, who owned the Patty George's and the Polo Grill and Bar in Lakewood Ranch. Let's go to our next photo here. Jewish land developers, very, very big and important part of the real estate community were the Jewish people. The Jewish land developers played a very significant role in the growth of Sarasota-Manatee. Marvin Paver on the right and his son Paul in the center received a trophy for building Kensington Park Community Center in this photo here. The original layout of Kensington Park in the late 1950s had an indoor community center, a recreational area with an outdoor swimming pool, picnic area, and it was a very popular spot. And if you drive in Kensington Park today, you'll notice that many of the streets in Kensington Park were relatives and friends of the Pavers. And then they also developed Paver Park, which also today has many streets that are named after their friends and relatives. The Pavers were responsible for the temple's relocation to Tuttle Avenue. And I could give a whole presentation about the Pavers and how generous they were with their donations to the temple. Let's go to our next picture here. This is a picture of Izzy Mann in 1965. He came to Sarasota from Miami. In 1963, he built Sarasota Harbor Apartments on Ringling Causeway. This was the first condominium in Sarasota-Manatee. On to the next picture here. I have to put in a few pictures from Manatee County. I had a little bit of trouble finding them from Manatee County, but this is actually one of the best pictures that I have today because this is a class picture that shows you, it shows you a 1934-1935 class from Palmetto Primary School that has one Jewish child in the classroom. Okay, let's go on to our next photo here. This is the Sarasota Jewish Federation. Before it was called the Jewish Federation, it was called the Sarasota Jewish Community Council. It eventually became the Sarasota Jewish Federation, and then it became called the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. It was formed in 1959 with Sidney Adler as its first president. In 1970, the Sarasota Community Council revamped into a newly constituted body with Ludwig Engler as its first executive director and Sheldon Genzler as its first president. The name changed to Sarasota Jewish Federation in 1980, to Sarasota-Manatee Jewish Federation in 1982. In 2009, the name became the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. The first office of the Federation was on Main Street, 1900 Main Street. And in 2017, in 1986, it moved to 580 McIntosh Road. That was in 1986. The next photo, please. This is a photo of the JCCS. This was a precursor. This here was first called the Jewish Family and Children Service, then it became the Jewish Family and Children Service of the Sun Coast. It was established in 1984 with Gerald Engman as the first president. The JCCS was originally on South Tamiami Trail, not too far from the landings, and it moved to Fruitville in 1999. Next photo, please. This photo was taken in front of the JCC. In 1989, Gil August was the first JCC executive director. In this 1998 photo, it was taken at the JCC expansion dedication, which added the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg building, which housed the Beatrice Friedman Theater and the Arthur and Beatrice Michaels Senior Center. By 1998, the JCC, already known for its day camp, preschool, and after-school care, was known as the Flanzer JCC after Louis and Gloria Flanzer. In late 2006, the Sarasota Family YMCA stepped in to run the Flanzer JCC, and then the YMCA's Flanzer JCC branch closed in April 2007. Now, I'm already seeing rumblings of things happening behind the Jewish Federation. So next time I give this talk, we'll hear more about what's happening by the Jewish Federation. Lots of big stuff happening there right now. Let's go to the next picture here. This photo was taken at the Sarasota-Manatee Arch Family Holocaust Education Center in 2004. Rich Bergman served as its director. In the front there with two name badges is Holocaust educator and survivor, Dr. Helen Fagan, and she's surrounded by guests coming to see the Holocaust Education Center. In 2007, New College received donations to help establish the Dr. Helen Fagan Holocaust Collection at the Jane Bancroft Cook Library. Next photo, please. This here is right before Cobranick House became a building. Cobranick House was an independent rental retirement residence that opened in 1993 as a project of the Sarasota-Manatee Jewish Housing Council. In 1997, on the same campus, Anshin Pavilion opened as an assisted living residence. In 2016, the Benderson Family Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center opened in 2000. Actually, the Benderson opened in 2010. The senior living community unveiled its new name, Aviva, in 2016. Marie Brown is there on the far left. You've got Jack Weintraub on the far right. And both of them were very, 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 very hardworking to get what we needed here was a Jewish retirement home. And let's go, well, the man in the middle, Abraham Horn, he had something to do with the architecture of the building. He was not Jewish, but the other two people are. Let's go to our next photo here. Sarasota residents contributed a lot to Israel. And one of the big contributors to different cities in Israel was Betty and Alex Schoenbaum. And they're seen here in front of the Betty and Alex Schoenbaum Regional Library in Tel Mond, Israel. Tel Mond, Israel is one of Sarasota's sister cities. Also, Betty and Alex Schoenbaum gave a lot of money. In fact, I think it was $5 million for a sports complex in Kiryat Yam, Israel, which was Sarasota's friendship city. Okay, let's go to the next picture. This is a picture of Ruth and Jerry Daniel in 1998. They were instrumental in the creation of Beit Daniel, a Reform synagogue in Tel Aviv. Next photo, please. I wanted to show you a picture of Sheldon Genzler. He's there with the carnation. He was active in the UJA appeal. He was the first person who was a volunteer for the Federation, very active, served as the first president in the reconstituted form of the Jewish Federation. Let's go to the next picture, please. This is what Temple Beth Shalom looked like when it was located on the corner of 6th and Washington Boulevard. Back in the days when this was built, it was 12th Avenue. They changed the numbering system, so today it's on 6th Avenue, 6th Street. This is on the northwest corner of 6th and Washington Boulevard. You can go there today. There's not even a landmark. It's just a strip center. But this was built in 1928. And in 1953, it was remodeled to get a religious school there. It was not until 1959 that your synagogue was located on Tuttle Avenue. Okay, let's go to the next picture here. Here's a picture of Diane Nathanson on the far right. She was the first Jewish cantor in Sarasota, and she is officiating or helping the rabbi there for a bar mitzvah. Of course, it's one of the Rosin boys. I believe that is, let's see, whose bar mitzvah is that? That is Adam Rosin's 1991 bar mitzvah. That's Rabbi Max Roth in the picture, congratulating him. Next photo, please. This is a 1961 photo of Temple Emmanuel, the first temple after Temple Beth Shalom. This was a temple ever since 1956, but it didn't get a building until 1961. Today, there are 15 synagogues in Sarasota-Manatee County. There's 3 Chabad congregations, a humanistic, a reconstructionist. Of course, you've got your Reform, you've got your conservative, your unaffiliated. And Sarasota is growing, more and more Jewish people. Okay, let's go on to our next photo here. And I wanted to show you Sarasota's first female rabbi. She is in the back row with the tallest and the long hair. Her name is Rabbi Marla Feldman. And I remember Marla Feldman coming to Temple Emmanuel one day with 2 different shoes. I'll never forget that. She was so embarrassed, but I said to her, if you didn't tell anybody, nobody would have known the difference. And that's Rabbi Arfa in the picture there. Okay, let's go to our next photo here. We're getting more to modern times here. This is one of the only places you'll find in Sarasota with the name of a store with somebody Jewish on the door. Mal's Liquor. Mal Krongold, who opened Charlie's News. Before he had Charlie's News, he had Mal's Liquor. And the person who bought it from him did not change the name. You can still go on Main Street and see Mal's Liquor. Okay, let's go to our next photo here. Now, when I put together the speech 1 month ago, Nancy's Barbecue was right near downtown Sarasota. Nancy is the daughter of Krongold. Her name was Nancy Krongold, and she opened up Nancy's Barbecue. And then I heard it was closing on October 31st. But there is another Nancy's in Lakewood Ranch. But I took this photo just so you could see another place in Sarasota with the name of a Jewish person right out in front. Okay, let's go to our next photo here. This is the Hood Building. And this was owned by the Augustine family, a Jewish family who came to Sarasota in the 1920s. I talked to the son of the owner of this building. His name was Milton Augustine. I talked to him when I was writing my book in 2012, and Milton Augustine actually was living in Sarasota in the 1920s. He was the oldest living person in Sarasota to have been born in the 20s and still living in Sarasota. And I got to talk to him about what was it like to live in Sarasota and be Jewish in the 1920s. And he loved it. He felt important. He even though there weren't that many Jewish people, he didn't feel any anti-Semitism. And this was his father's building. And then he took it over after his father passed away. It was a scrap business. Okay, this is the next picture here. Here is Cone Way and Boulevard of the Arts. This is in the Rosemary District, a street in Sarasota named after David Cone. Let's go to the next picture here. This is the cover of my book again. And if you look carefully at the lady on the right, her name is Pauline Schoenberg. She was the one who posed for this picture that her father took. It's a lovely photograph. And when I was looking for a photo to put on the cover of my book, the publisher told me it had to be a recognizable building in Sarasota. It had to have not too much activity going on the top part of the picture so that the name of the book could be there. This had everything. It had 4 Jewish people right in front of the beach. Let's go to the next photo here. Here's a picture of me with Pauline Schoenberg. Pauline Schoenberg is now 95 years old. She's a member of Temple Emmanuel. She's been a member there for over 50 years. There's only one person at Temple Emmanuel who's been a member longer than her. His name is Marvin Gross. And I close now, and I hope I gave you 120 years in an hour, and you were able to take a lot of this in and absorb some of it, I hope.
It's a really nice picture.
And Pauline has been listening to the talk over the telephone right now. Say hello, Pauline.
Hello.
Oh.
There you go.
Hi there.
Hi there.
I remember going over to Pauline's house and looking at her photo album at all the early photos of Sarasota. She was coming here since the 1950s with her parents.
Right, peeps?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that delightful presentation. As I was scanning through the little squares on my screen, I kept seeing people peer in closer and closer, saying, wait, I know that place, and a little smile here and someone talking to their spouse and pointing. So I think that you really had the audience right in the palm of your hand, Ms. Sheintel. I want to thank you for that. Any questions? If you do have any questions, just raise your hand or put that little reaction icon up. There's somebody. Sonia Fuentes, could you please unmute yourself and fire away?
That's Kim's cute. That's Kim's granddaughter.
She's somebody that's in the book, by the way.
Oh, Sonia, can you unmute yourself, please? All right. Well, while she's trying to unmute herself, I thought I saw another hand go up. Lauren Haven, go right ahead and unmute yourself and speak right up.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I noticed that in one of the pictures you had Ian Black. Is that the Ian Black that's the current realtor that we see the big signs for?
Yeah, the black and white.
And is he currently still alive, or is he?
Yes.
So it's still his company. He's still.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's so funny. And then my best friend from Maryland, her grandparents were one of the founding families down here. I don't know if you know the name Stearman. S-T-E. She's texting me right now.
Not Spiegelman.
No, Stearman. S-T-E-A-R-M-A-N. Maurice and May. They came down here in the, I think, early 50s and then went over to Delray. But they started here. So just a fun fact. I don't know.
I'm going to write that, Stearman.
Yeah, Maurice and May.
Okay, you know what I used to do when I would give my presentations? I had a notebook and I passed around a piece of paper to everybody. And I say, write down if you know somebody that came to Sarasota that I didn't mention and tell me what they did in Sarasota. That would have been the perfect thing to write on a piece of paper.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm scanning around on my first screen and I don't see too many.
Muted now.
Oh, there you go, Sonia. Please speak right up.
I wanted to make 2 comments. One, I'm living in Aviva for about a year, and I absolutely love it here. And Helen Fagan, whom you mentioned, lives here too, but she's not in that great shape. And then I have a question, Kim.
Yes.
Liz Alpert is a good friend of mine. I went to her wedding 2 years ago. I never knew that she was Jewish. Did you say she was a Jewish mayor here?
Yes.
Are you certain that she's Jewish?
Yes.
Wow. I never heard that.
Well, you know what they say, the Jews have all the power in the media, so. There's a trivia question about Pee Wee Herman, but I won't, I'll speak to that offline with
That's
Kim.
right.
I may use that in my next trivia game.
I got to tell you one thing though about Pee Wee Herman. I used to see all the pictures of the confirmation classes from Temple Emmanuel posted around the religious school, and Pee Wee Herman's picture was always there, one of the confirmation classes. And when it was time for me to write my book, I went back to the temples because I wanted to put that picture in the book, and they had painted the building and got rid of all the photos. Never got that picture.
All right, let me see. There were no questions from the group. Oh, here's a question. Frank, if you could go right ahead, you can unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Okay. How come you missed Shabbat's on Main Street?
I'm sorry, what?
Shabbat's. There was a general store at Shabbat's on Main Street.
I did not know that. What year?
Oh, it was there in the 74 when my in-laws moved down, and it must have been there for about at least 10 years more. And they had a store in Manhattan too.
Very interesting.
All right, let's go to the second screen. Anybody here on the second screen who wants to chime in as I'm scanning around? All right. Well, Kim, we still have a few minutes left, so please take the last 10 minutes and add any concluding remarks you wish to add.
Yeah, I just want to say something. I once gave a presentation at Cobranick House, and the Sarasota Jewish Chorale was performing, and I gave the presentation, and somebody came up to me after the presentation. At that time, I thought the first Jewish person that came to Sarasota-Manatee was Philip Levy, and the lady who was the conductor of the Jewish chorale, who was not Jewish, told me she got a copy of my book, and she wanted to let me know that she thinks I'm wrong, that Philip Levy was not the first Jewish person in Sarasota-Manatee. She believed there was a lady that went to Palmetto that was Jewish. So it was that day when I gave that presentation that I found out about the lady who moved to Palmetto in 1909, who was Jewish. And I found that out from the conductor of the Jewish chorale, who was not Jewish. She was the one that told me. So it seems like every time when I give a speech, I find out about somebody I didn't know that was Jewish. So please, if you know of anybody else, tell me. I keep track of all this. I find it very interesting.
Joel Service has his hand up. Joel, can you unmute yourself? And the floor is yours.
So there was mention of Pee Wee Herman, whose name you probably know is Paul Rubens, but the family name is actually Rubenfeld. And several years ago, a documentary called Above and Beyond was produced about the beginnings of the Israeli Air Force. The first 6 Israeli Air Force fighter pilots who were all volunteers. And Paul's father, Milton Rubenfeld, was one of those 6 pilots, and I'm mentioning it because the interviews with Paul and his mother were shot at Temple Beth Shalom.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you.
Well, Kim, I just have one question. Oftentimes, when it comes to circus history, Lou Jacobs and Dorothy Jacobs, they come up, and I just wonder, with a name like Jacobs, do they have any ties to the Jewish community?
I asked her, and she told me no. But you want to know something? I'm sure there must have been some Jewish roots back there with that name, but she says that she's not Jewish.
Okay, wow. Seeing no further questions from the floor, I want to, on behalf of Temple Beth Shalom, thank Kim Sheintel for a wonderful presentation. I can see lots of people applauding, and I want to thank Kim for taking the time with me to practice a little bit of the Zooming. I thought the presentation
you,
went
Kim.
very, very well.